Hey everyone, David here, creator of the upcoming sci-fi game Arcadian Rift. I thought my devlogs might be getting a bit long, so I decided I would open with an abridged version at the start. So I'm just going to put the whole devlog on screen at once in case you want to just watch it real quickly. Okay, now for the full version. This month began with a strong focus on planning the first story mission, as well as the boss battle. I had to design and figure out both the mission and the boss kind of simultaneously, because I wanted the mission itself to teach a mechanic, and then the boss battle would require you to execute in that mechanic. For the mission, I thought it'd be good to teach the magnet ability, since that's something you'll start from, you'll have at the beginning, and it's something you'll be using a lot. Opening the doors here requires throwing the kind of power cells into a receiver, and then there are also many times where you'll want to move objects into places in order to kind of get up higher across gaps and stuff. Eventually, I'll also probably have an enemy that throws bombs at you and you can throw back. And then, of course, the boss battle will also have some sort of attack where it throws bombs and you throw the bombs at it. So after getting practice with throwing things all mission, should be pretty fun. After spending a while on the design and mechanics, it came time to actually figure out the mission layout. This took quite a bit of time actually, sketching how many rooms I'd need, what they'd involve, and then start actually building it with the blockout tools. I also designed the mission to be way more optimized than the salvage freighter, with the ability to load and unload sections of the level. The entire thing was built in typical MVP fashion, with no real art, everything was just placeholder stuff, and I began with the doors and power sources. They're basically a better version of my old industrial doors, however these allow multiple power sources, and I made wires that clearly show you that you'll have like power that you need to get powered on in order to open the door, so it's very clear what you need to do this time around. There are also movable goal things to throw the power source into, and a nice thing with these is I designed them such that they'll respawn if you miss, so you don't have to keep running and picking up the power balls if you miss them. I also added a unique little minigame at one point where you have to dodge some dangerous things that will be rolling down a ramp. I haven't decided what they're going to look like yet, but who knows. To go with this minigame, I finally added a soft respawn mechanic for things like falling off the map or being hit by these kind of minigame dangers. Rather than killing the player and having them lose all their progress, I just have them teleport back to a nearby respawn point instantly. This means I can make a lot of kind of interesting, challenging puzzles, but not punish the player hugely for just failing once. I also added a much needed system for having waves of enemies that I can control when they spawn, how many spawn, where they spawn, and what happens when you clear a wave. This was essential for getting a lot more use out of locations and maps, not having to just constantly build huge linear levels to have a lot of enemies. I can have like one area that you fight in for a while and multiple enemies keep spawning in and fighting. What's good about this wave system though is I don't need to only use it for the multi-wave scenarios, but I can also use it just to have it spawn, just a few enemies as you enter an area or approach a certain place. This actually improved performance a lot since I don't need to have a bunch of enemies just roaming around aimlessly when you're, not at all nearby. I also did a cool effect for them spawning. That way you have an indication that they're about to spawn, so you know where to be ready for and not just be surprised when they just appear right in your face. Speaking of them spawning in your face, I made an improvement to all enemies where when they get aggro on you, there's a slight delay before they can open fire. That prevents them from, either spawning in and immediately attacking you, or, you walk around a corner and just the second you walk around the corner, you just bullets flying at you. In addition to this, I'm testing a new design on the enemies where the red lights that I've had on them are gonna... Did you hear that click? That was my monitor. My monitor just went... No, I'm just kidding. That's my back. My back went... Where was I? Something aggro or something and the lights are off, but now when you attack them, the lights actually will turn on when they have aggro on you. That way the player will clearly know if an enemy is hostile to them at any given moment. I put like money in the script. It's like mommy money. One problem we were having when testing the game was indicating to the player when they're being hurt, where they're being hurt from, how close to death they are, etc. So I made a bunch of improvements to the damage and health system. First, I improved projectiles to show that they were coming from the direction of the enemy, not the projectile itself. That way the hit indicators I showed off in a previous devlog would be more accurate to showing where the actually enemy was attacking you from. Currently it was the projectile would kind of hit you on the side of your body and show that it was coming from a side when actually the enemy was in front. Second, I added an enemy radar. This was something I thought would solve a lot of the confusion, and after a bit of exploring around and following the tutorial, I managed to get a little temporary working radar up and a little throwaway scene, and then I moved it all over into the game, made it all nice, redesigned it to actually work a lot better with the widgets and UI stuff, and immediately this made a huge difference, and I think players will be happy with this. Number 3, I'm currently trying a new health idea, which gives the player a lot more shields, similar to something like Borderlands. Previously the shields were really small and it was mostly a game about health. The idea here is to keep your shields up, and if you lose health, then you have to start looking for health kits or killing enemies. The shield bar is now larger than the health when you have shields, and the number displays the shield amount rather than the health amount, and upon the shield breaking, then the health and shield bar swap, and the number shows the health to make it clear how much health you have remaining. Sounds a little confusing right now, but it's not so much when you're playing. Number 4, when the shield breaks, there's now a flash effect that kind of plays on the screen really briefly to indicate that the shields are broken and your health is now in danger. And finally, number 5, when your health drops below 1/3, it now goes into a critical state and the number turns red and the bar begins flashing, and it will continue to flash even when your shields are charged, just to remind you to pick up some health. And even if you do manage to die, with all these indicators now, I added a nice option when you die to either respawn at your ship like you used to, or you can just immediately reload and retry the current mission. This saves a lot of time, and is the kind of thing I personally get really frustrated with in games when you want to retry something, but it takes like a minute of loading screens, cutscenes, dialogue options, travel time before you can actually start again. Goddamn Chocobo race. I may even later improve this further to skip the boarding pod sequence and save even more time. In the last week or so, I decided to pull focus on optimization and performance. Let's try that again. In the last week or so, I decided to put full focus on optimization and performance. I spent a while watching tutorials, listening to talks, reading guides, and really trying to learn how UE4 optimization and profiling works. I was able to actually fairly drastically improve the CPU side of things so far, and as such the frame rate should be a lot better. I'm still going to keep looking into this, improving the GPU, draw times and stuff. And finally, I am improving the way I give out alphas and do the feedback even further now. Instead of releasing an alpha and then making a bunch of fixes a few days later, then posting those fixes, but no one is able to even experience them because they don't get the next alpha with those fixes for like another month, and by the time they do, there's new bugs anyway. I'm now holding off bug fixing till just before each alpha releases. That way I can do a big list of fixes, improvements, and even post all the new features, so it's like a true update list that players can follow along with and kind of be excited to try out with. The game in these little alphas will actually start being like a little kind of early access thing now, where it's like, here's the new version, here's all the new stuff you have, here's all the fixes I made from last time when you left feedback. Pretty cool. And that's all this month. Wait, no it's not. I got one more surprise to show you from my sound designer After Infinity. Thanks everyone for watching, and a big thanks to all my patrons who are supporting my work. This month I passed a full year since I began working on game stuff, so don't forget to check out the video I released where I talk about my experiences and offer advice to getting started with games. See you all next month.